What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Uncensored Critic podcast. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. I appreciate it so very, very much. So, thank you for that. Today, we welcome along a fantastic actress, Miss Victoria Blunt, and let's take a moment to introduce her and her work. Victoria trained at the Oxford School of Drama and I get my notes up right? The Ecole Phillip Gaulier, I've pronounced that wrong, it's French, I'm so sorry, just outside Paris. For film, she has appeared in Ammonite, directed by Francis Lee, with Seesaw Films and the BFI, British Film Institute. The television for Flowers in the Attic, The Origin for Lifetime USA, and Borderline LittleRock Productions, and a host of theatre credits, including Prism, which had a national tour, which was reviewed by Upper Circle, which actually I'm part of as well, the review company. Says Blunt gives an exquisite demonstration of what it is to be diverse and adaptable as an actor. On top of that, she's also appeared in Love Labour's Lost, Romeo and Juliet, Lady Vandermeer's Fan, Christmas Carol with the RSC, a Lavender Hill Mob, Midsummer Nights Dream, where she won an Office nomination for her show-stealing interpretation of Bottom, understudy to Andrew Scott in Vanya, which was adapted into a one-person piece by Simon Stevens, which played at the Duke of York's Theatre from the 15th of September to the 21st of October, directed by Sam Yates. And that's something I'm going to talk about a lot today. And if anyone who's interested who didn't manage to get to the show, it's going to be broadcasted to a cinema near you on the 22nd of February, so get your tickets now. But without further ado, Vic, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Thank you for such a lovely intro. Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very well. Very well. Thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So we start with the starter question for every guest. Where did it all start for you? The love of acting. Where did it come from?
Ah, so I'm not sure I wanted to be an actor. But I think it was a love of making people laugh. So as a kid, I was always dressing up as my grandma, doing impressions of her. She was this German mad woman. I just sort of impersonate her quite a lot, and I think I loved just being a bit of a clown and messing around, and yeah, I loved making people laugh. And then I think where I grew up and sort of the jobs and stuff within my family, I don't think performing was ever a thought or an option. It didn't seem like a viable path, and I wasn't even sure it was a thing. Um, so I wanted to be a lollipop lady for quite a while, and then and then I watched Sister Act, and I remember sitting in McDonald's and saying to my mum, I think I want to be a nun. And my mum was like, oh, no, nuns don't sing as much as you think they do. Um, Maybe you want to be an actor. And I was like, oh my God, is that a thing? Could I do that? And then yeah, I guess I just sort of started from there thinking about that. But like I say, there's no sort of blueprint, and it didn't seem obvious to me that it was an option. So it was kind of a long time of thinking, I think I want to do this thing, but I don't know how. We didn't have drama lessons at school or anything. It was, I had to go pretty far out of my way to get into an Amdram group. So yeah, it was a kind of I knew I loved performing. I didn't realize it could be a profession. And then when I found out it could be, I chased it hard.
I'm just hearing you talk there. What was your sort of earliest memory of performing? Was it in school plays or is it something else?
No, it was my parents joined a church so that we could get into the least awful school in the area. And I remember dressing up as a cat in this church thing. Oh no, do you know what the first one was that really like started it? I
Yeah.
played the snowman in The Snowman in my nursery production. And I remember having this massive snowman costume on that was so hot, and I
Yeah.
was really little. It's like wild. I remember it so well. But I remember there was a bit I'd Velcro on my nose, and there was a bit where I'd put different bits of fruit on my nose.
Yeah.
And all the audience were laughing, and I remember feeling really good. And then at the end, I like whipped off the head of my snowman outfit to reveal it was me all along, like, this big moment of pride. I think I always imagine, I still have this, I always imagine when I'm performing that I've transformed so entirely that nobody knows it's me.
Mm,
And then I look back at production photos and I'm like, oh no, it's just me in a hat.
mm.
Um, but I felt like that with the snowman, where I was like, Mum, it's me. I'm not a real snowman. So I think that's definitely the first memory. And then yeah, the cat at church, the very well received cat.
Wonderful.
And yeah, we didn't really do drama at school. I think we maybe did a play at some point, but that was in junior school. Nothing in senior. It was a pretty pretty dry school for anything creative, to be honest.
Yeah. Are you tempted to revive the snowman at the Panto this year?
I would do it at the drop of a hat. I don't know if I'd live up to the same. I don't know if it would be have quite the impact as it did the first time around, me ripping my snowman head off. But yeah, oh my God, I'd never done panto. In all the years
Hmm.
I've been an actor, I've never done it. So that's definitely it's on the list.
It's on
So
the
we'll
list.
see.
Good. No, I want to see that cat as well. I think that's going to be a master. Fantastic. So yeah, that's interesting how, because a lot of people who have had on the show talk about how, the first inspiration came from a teacher, drama teacher or a photography teacher or whatever, and that made them sort of ask the question and ask about drama school. But you just say in there you didn't have drama at school. So how did that sort of manifest itself? Not knowing about drama, but then going on to Oxford and the drama school, Oxford School of Speech and Drama.
Yeah. Well, I think I like I say, I really liked the idea of it. There was no obvious way of doing it. I I left my family home when I was 16, so I was quite young, and I'd already found a course by then at a college, Clarendon College in Nottingham, that was a what's it called? A BND, National Diploma in Performing Arts. And I thought, that's what I'm going to do. That's the one I'm going to do. And I was like working as a pot wash in a pub, um, in this awful bedsit, living in this awful bedsit. And I was going to college, just and still not really thinking it was viable and not really understanding how that would ever be my life, but just feeling like I have this real urge to do this thing. And I don't even know if I'm good at it, but I really feel like that's where I have to be.
Hmm.
And I'm not even sure if that route's open anymore, which is a real shame. But I remember, like, I don't even know how I found out about it, because it was very much like you were going to be a teacher or you're going to be doing something practical. There was not really, I have absolutely no recollection of how I discovered it. But yeah, I ended up on this course anyway. And having having achieved one GCSE in French, bizarrely, très bon. So the BND, because I couldn't do A levels with no GCSEs, but the national diploma meant that I could get into a college and study. And I had a bit of a turbulent time, but I think it just kind of ignited this love I had for it. And there was a guy there, a teacher, funnily enough, who was on a college course, who in my second year took me under his wing a little bit. It's called Phil Green. He works for Derby Theatre now, and he is amazing. He's got his own one-man show, actually, which is touring around, and he still comes and watches my shows, and he was really supportive, and he was the one that said to me, you should probably look at going to university. And I was like, oh, that's for clever people. I don't think I'll be doing that. And he was like, no, I think you should, look into it. And I've got a friend who works at this university. So maybe you could go there and they'll, look after you a bit. So I ended up doing that, which was great and the right choice, I think, because God knows what would have become of me if I hadn't have done that.
Yeah. So what do you think would have happened? Do you think?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think I don't know what to say without sounding really bleak. But
You don't
yeah,
have
I
to.
don't
You don't
know.
have to.
Yeah, I think it would probably. I guess I just do what everyone else did and find a job that I don't really like, and make it work, and
Yeah.
um, find other enjoyments in my life, which is no bad thing. But this ultimately was the life that I wanted. I don't think I really had the confidence or the knowledge or the money to really chase it
Yeah.
initially and understand how to get there. So I definitely like Phil's help pointing me in the direction of university, which ultimately was great, but I did end up going to drama school, as you say, Oxford School of Drama much later on. I was 30 when I went there. So
Mm.
I went to uni first. And yeah, that was sort of the path, I guess.
Great. Well, here you are now, and that's great. So yeah, tell me about Oxford. What was your training like?
So amazing. First of all, I sort of complete the story. I went to university first until I was 21, and I did performing arts, which was great. Still didn't know how to be an actor.
Mhm.
Um, and the practicalities of it were very confusing, and I
Yeah.
got in a lot of debt. But then after I graduated, I started to put on with a group of friends, and one of my lecturers started to put on plays. And then I got some jobs working abroad, touring theatre. So I toured Italy, Germany, Japan, Spain, just doing like theatre and education jobs for years,
Nice.
um, which is amazing. Like a really incredible experience to travel the world or Europe and Japan. But like really feel like I did a lot of my sort of training comes from that and from being really disciplined and with time and with energy and with having to wash your costumes and look after your props and set up your own set and all that stuff. And I think that was really invaluable. So yeah, I did that for a long time. Then I moved to London, and then I think I just, again, I've always had a bit of a confidence thing and really felt like I wanted to and needed to train. Um, and I don't think people need to. I really don't believe that now I've done it. But Oxford was the perfect thing for me. It's on a farm in Woodstock in rural Oxford. So
Yeah.
it's kind of, the opposite of everything I've always been a real city person. And basically throughout all those years of performing and like doing Edinburgh and like, all that sort of stuff,
Mm.
working mostly for free or profit share or whatever, the actors that I really loved, like the actors who I thought had the most interesting approach to their work, they'd all trained at Oxford. And so when I started looking at drama schools and thinking, I do want to do a postgrad, I do want to like learn to use my voice properly because I was losing my voice all the time. I wanted to learn to use my body properly, and like understand a bit better about myself.
Mm.
And so when I was looking at drama schools, I was like, well, I have to go to Oxford. Everyone I like has been to Oxford. And I don't think at the time there was any like major, famous faces that had come from Oxford, but I just knew that was the one I wanted.
Mm.
And I auditioned, and it was one of the only schools to still have a Dada scheme, dance and drama award. So if you came from like a low income background, you get financial support. Um, so I knew I could, potentially afford to do it if I saved. Um, and yeah, when I got in, it just felt like, wow, I'm doing it. And I had this year of living in Oxford, cycling to my school bus, going to the farm every day. And the ethos there is like everybody cleans the school, everyone looks after the school. It's a very I think it just has an approach that's very unique and very you go really deep into yourself
Mm.
and into the process. And back then I don't think it was always the safest. Like I think it's changed a lot. Like I go back occasionally and do sort of I assess students doing their singing exams or whatever, and it's changed loads. I think most drama schools have over the years, especially around 2020. A lot came out about some of the practices that weren't very good.
Yeah.
So it definitely had its moments of feeling like, what is this? But for the most part, it was extraordinary. And I felt really connected to myself and to my community. This little group of, I think there was like 13 of us in our year. We were super close and we all supported each other. And up until that point, I guess I'd always felt like Shakespeare, I didn't get it. It was for clever people. I didn't connect to it. And it was there where I met one of the best directors I've ever worked with, who just unlocked all of that for me. And I've worked with him loads since. And I think that in itself was, an amazing thing to happen for me. It's, yeah, opened a whole world of possibility.
Amazing. Who was that director? What was his name?
His name's Paul Hart, and he is the artistic director at the Watermill. And he was so my audition for Oxford,
Yeah.
it was in 2014, and I'd just been to see an all-female Julius Caesar, and I remember thinking, I want to do Mark Antony as my audition speech, and it was kind of
Yeah.
unheard of to do that at the time. It was like, no, you pick your sex, and you don't deviate from that. But I did Mark Antony. I was like, fuck this, I'm going to do something
Yeah.
I find really exciting. So what else am I going to do? The ring speech.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, I'm going to do Mark Antony. And I remember him being a little bit kind of critical about that. And
Okay.
then when I was on the course, Paul came in and he was directing Julius Caesar, and he cast me as Mark Antony, which is so wild and
Wow.
really exciting, and felt like he'd opened up this world that I didn't think I could be a part of these characters that I desperately wanted to play. Like later on, I played Bottom in Midsummer with Paul. I've played Malcolm in his Macbeth. I played Benvolio in his Romeo and Juliet. Like he just, yeah, I think he understands what I can bring to something as a person, rather than what I should be cast as. He has an amazing ability to cast characters, I suppose, rather than looking at anything other than someone's spirit, which is
Mm,
amazing.
cool. So when's your Hamlet coming out?
DBC, I'm not for want
To
of
be confirmed,
trying.
guys. To be confirmed. Okay. Yeah. You mentioned Mark Antony there, and there's one speech of his is one of my favorite in Shakespeare, which of course is "Let's slip the dogs of war." And how did you approach that?
Oh, it's so badass. I think I don't, it was quite a long time ago, but I think I approached it all with an air of terror, because I felt really like, oh my God, it's, Shakespeare, you've got to be so careful with it all, and it all means so much, and there's so much hidden meaning, and it was Paul who was like, do you know what? Shakespeare in his time was a new writer. It was really exciting. It was really edgy. It was really
Mm,
like, you understand the iambic, you understand the meaning of the sentence, bring it alive. And I think I guess just, really inhabiting the character, and especially like, I think it changed things as well to play as a woman in that role, and being like, oh, there's so much I have to prove in this army, as this person with this control. So yeah, I think whenever I approach anything like that, I guess it's having a really clear sense of the meaning, and then not apologizing for taking lots of risks with it, trying loads of different stuff with it, seeing what works. I think that's a really important part of the process, is yeah, trying everything, being quite relentless and strict with yourself on, really investigating what works best in that moment and with those people.
yeah.
And because it's a conversation with the whole cast, really.
Yeah. I just want to cast your mind back to it. I know you said it was a bit of a while ago now, but do you remember the line when you say "cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war"?
Hmm.
I've noticed like there's many ways of doing it, but I've always found like there's two kind of main ways. One of which is to go cry havoc like that, and then say and let's slip the dogs of war like Marlon Brando does it in the film, or you go cry havoc and let's slip the dogs of war, because there's so many ways of doing it. But some people leave a pause after havoc, and some people just go all the way through it, like with the iambic or just with their stream of thought consciousness in a way. Do you remember what choice you made on that bit?
I can't remember, but I guess because it's a ten beat line, it would make sense that it's one line. But
Yeah.
I don't know without like looking at the looking at the speech again now. But I think it's always interesting with Shakespeare, and it's something they talked about in Oxford, was like monosyllabic and polysyllabic words and how they
Yeah.
fit in your mouth, and how much punch you can give them. And havoc being polysyllabic, sort of almost, I don't know, there's something sort of lighter about that I quite like. And havoc being, almost slightly playful in a way that it's not, I don't know, it's not cry death, is it? It's not cry like,
No,
it's
it's a
havoc is
revolution cry,
different.
isn't it? Yeah.
And maybe that's slightly more exciting, but I have no idea how I would have delivered that. But I can tell you now, it would have been 5 stars. No, I'm joking.
Absolutely. Yeah, 5 stars at a minimum, mate. Honestly, more than that.
They
If,
ran out. They ran out of stars in the
yeah,
end.
if there was 10, they'd give you 10. But
But actually, it was really funny in that production because we had loads of fake blood, and we didn't realize, we'd not rehearsed it. We didn't realize how oily it was, and every single night someone would
gosh,
stack it so hard. Yeah, every single one of us. And there was one night where this girl Maria, it was like a cartoon fall, where someone's like kind of running for ages, trying
yeah,
not to fall, and then eventually they fall. And it was always like in a really serious, I mean, because you're covered in blood, it's like a very
yeah,
serious moment, and always somebody would absolutely stack it. And it was probably quite difficult for any of us to maintain, the focus and energy required. Because I remember having to run on in this battle scene and sort of trying to very gingerly avoid all of the blood on the floor because I really don't want to fall
yeah.
over. Yeah, it probably didn't have all the impact we'd hoped for, since we were trying to literally save ourselves from falling.
Yeah. I've got an image now of you just standing in front of the whole congregation going, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. But you're doing like, friends, Romans, countrymen. Go ahead, calm
Nobody
down,
knows.
calm down. Okay. Okay. No, no. Oh, but it's like that's the one speech that everyone knows as well, and they're waiting to hear your interpretation, and you're there going, "Okay, don't laugh, don't laugh, don't laugh." Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
together, it's gonna be fine. Okay, good. Yeah, I wish I'd seen that. Now, I wish I'd seen that. If the opportunity came around again, Mark Antony, would you do it again?
Oh my God, yeah, 100%. I'd love to do that again. It was a hoot. It was yeah, it was great and really inspiring to see the all-female one at the Dunmar many years ago. I think that had such a big impact on me that I hadn't really appreciated until much later. But yeah, yeah, really good.
Yeah, we did Shakespeare scenes at drama school, and I played Brutus for one scene, Act Four, Scene
Mm.
Three. Let me tell you, Cassius, you yourself are much condemned to have an itching palm. That scene is just it's just the language and the way the meter works, and like you said, the polysymbol. How do you say it? Monosyllabic and polysyllabic words in that, and the structure. Oh, just I could talk about that for ages. But anyway, that
Yeah.
would distract me from one great dramatist in Shakespeare to another in Anton Chekhov. Is of course Uncle Vanya, and
Mm.
you appeared as Andrew Scott's understudy in the most recent production of Vanya, adapted by Simon Stevens into a one-person show. And it got incredible reviews, and of course, you managed to get one performance in. You also had a dress run as well. And I think it's a very good to have you on to talk about. Again, we had Danny Arlington on here talking about the importance of understudies as well. But we'll get on to all that process in just a second. But to kick things off, how did you find out about the job? What was the audition like? What were those early days?
So I don't think I'd done. So I'd finished the job in the February, and then it had been quite dry for a while. And I was up in Birmingham filming an episode of Doctors when a casting director, a really brilliant casting director called Matilda James, she's fantastic. She got in touch with me and just said, "I'm casting this project that's a bit
Yeah,
bizarre, but I think you might be good at it.
yeah,
Would you be interested?" And when I opened the email, I was like, "What? This sounds ridiculous."
yeah,
And I was like, "Yeah, I guess." Like, what? And I thought, fuck it, yeah, I'll throw my hat in. Why not? Let's see. And I think because I found it quite frightening,
Mm.
um, I sort of thought, yeah, all right, let's just see. And she sent me the sides straight away and was like, you have to do the audition tape in the next few days or something. It was very quick because basically they weren't going to have an understudy and then they were going to have a male understudy and then they opened it out to be female or non-binary.
Mhm.
um but they were already towards the end of rehearsals by this point, so it was so quick, the turnaround.
Wow.
So I recorded my tape from a hotel in Birmingham, and it had two different scenes, but there were no character names against any of them. And it was just blocks of text. And so no context other than, knowing it was Uncle Vanya, but it wasn't really a play I'd read a lot. I'd seen a production of it years before. I think I'd always felt about Chekhov the same way I felt about Shakespeare, of like, oh, I don't get it. It's for clever people.
Mm.
Yeah, so I sent off the tape. And then got a recall and I couldn't make the recall date. And I thought, okay, well, that's that. And then
Yeah.
they said, oh no, if you want to come in early morning on a Wednesday, when you're back from Birmingham, then we can see you. And so within a week I was doing the recall, and then on that same day I found out I got it, and I'd have to start the following week.
Wow.
And then the week after that was the first previews. So it was a real wild ride. And I don't think I'd
Ouch.
quite even understood what the assignment was at that
Yeah.
point. And I was meant to be going up to Edinburgh to do some gigs and like have a bit of a jolly. And I just got this script through and I was like, oh, this is 40 pages of just talking.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I have to learn that very quickly. And so, yeah, the reality of it set in quite quickly, having been just kind of excited, thinking, oh, this sounds really mad. And, what's this going to be like? And, oh, I can't even imagine how this will work. And then suddenly being like, oh, yeah, no, it's happening.
Mm.
Cancel everything for the next few months.
Yeah. I mean, I probably wasn't clear just now, but so this new adaptation is because there was a recent production of Vanya, well, actually a few years ago, I think, just before lockdown, actually, with Richard Armitage, Toby Jones,
Mm.
etc. And I was lucky enough to see, but I didn't manage to get into the theatre, unfortunately. I had a ticket booked for the 31st of March, 2020, and that got quickly refunded after that. But yeah, so I was lucky enough to see it in the cinema later on, and it's a very kind of ensemble piece. And then when I heard about this, and it's just one person doing all
Yeah.
the characters, I was thinking, how is this? How is this possible? And when you read, because I haven't seen it, I'm gonna go see the broadcast in a couple of weeks. But when you've got the text and you've got all these different characters, but it's just you, how did you approach that?
Well, for context as well, I don't think they were going to do it as a one-person play originally. It was
Yeah, yeah.
meant to be Andrew was Vanya, and what happened was they had a meeting. It was him, Simon Stevens, and Sam Yates had a meeting, and they were talking about how they were going to do it. And then Andrew started reading some of the text, and then because they didn't have other actors in, he started reading other characters as well. And that was when they were like, "Oh, maybe there's something in this. This sounds fun." So that's sort of the context of that. I've completely forgotten your question. I'm so sorry. What was the?
Okay. How did you? So you've got all these, you've got 40 pages of text, and you've got different
Yeah,
characters, obviously on the page, but it's just you. So how did you sort of approach distinguishing each one or finding each voice in a way? How did you approach that?
yeah. I guess. Well, so by the time I got the full text, they'd helpfully put names to everyone. So they were it was clear how many characters were in the play, and it is loosely, it's Uncle Vanya is the jumping off point of it. So it's basically that, but set in a more modern time. And I guess I read it a lot from start to finish, and I sort of let it permeate a little bit. You get a flavor for who these people are, what their arcs are, what their journeys are, what they want, what their obstacles are, all that sort of stuff. And you're kind of piecing together these people. And I think for this particular process, it was finding how they fit into me.
Mhm.
Um, because I guess that was the point of this, the whole endeavor was that, these are incredibly human stories, and um their wants, their desires, their feelings, they're all things that are so we all share. It's so human, all of these
Yeah.
things, the jealousy, the love, all of it. And so I guess like finding those voices within myself was a really important jumping off point, because that, you go from Sonia, who's quite close to me in age, and I would be cast as Sonia normally, to like Alexander, who's this aging writer with writer's block, who's who's much older, and obviously a completely different sex and different experience, and but has writer's block and is scared of failure. And so it's like those ins of being like, oh, I know those feelings, I know what it is to be scared of, you know failing, not being a success, and how does that fit into my body, and how does he sit in me, how do I make that make sense? So yeah, there's a lot of God, lots of sitting around thinking, and a lot of trying stuff out, thinking about these people and finding reference points for them. You just need it in. You need a little in to find your way. And there were some of them that I struggled with a lot,
Mm.
and some of them just, sat very, very comfortably for me and felt very accessible.
Mm. And I think you mentioned there about all the different emotions and everything about, these characters in Chekhov sort of. I think there's a stereotypical image that Chekhov is depressing and dull and boring and everyone's really sad all the time. Which of course is not true. I've been to Chekhov and it's funny. Chekhov,
Mm,
I think he highlights that sometimes there's laughter in misery in a way, and people can find joy in sadness or being unsettled or being any kind of something that isn't happy can still be happy at the same time. And
mm,
and you watch. I mean, I've seen there's an exclusive clip of Andrew like doing like just a small segment of it, and it's funny. He's finding the comedy in that, and I'm sure you found it as well. So all these kind of preconceptions about Chekhov, people saying, "Oh, he's dull, he's boring, and doesn't make any sense." Having been through the ringer of Vanya and actually been in the rehearsal room and learnt this, this enormous text, what would you say to those people?
I think Simon Stevens, who by the way is an icon, and
He's
the
incredible.
reason I wanted to do, yeah, as soon as I saw
Incredible.
he'd written it, I was like, if he's written it, I'm doing it. I'm
Yeah.
gonna do this play.
Yeah.
And he's an exceptional writer and an exceptional human being. But yeah, I think he said to me that uh Chekhov can feel black and white and like a museum piece, and that
Mm.
he wanted to bring color to it, and he wanted to kind of highlight the comedy. And this is something that Gaulier, who is a clown teacher, he teaches Chekhov and talks about how funny Chekhov is, and it is hilarious. And that's
Yeah.
the best comedy is tragedy plus time. It's that's how it works. It's pathos. It's anything that can kind of break your heart, because in all of our lives, the saddest things that happen, the most horrendous moments you find yourself in, often you can, I mean, certainly for me, I will always eventually find the funny in it, or even accidentally. I mean, I was talking to my friend the other day. There was a time in my life where I moved in with my grandma because she had dementia, and it was a very, on paper, a really sad time, sort of watching someone slowly kind of disintegrate. It was also one of the funniest years of my life, of just, having these circular conversations and like just being in this situation with her. And she would laugh as well, because it was so bizarre what was happening, and, the hilarious things that would come up from that. But it is, it's tragic, but I
Yeah.
guess that's where most of the comedy comes from.
Yeah. I think Ricky Gervais talks about this in his one of his Netflix shows. I think it was Humanity. Towards the end, he talks about how if you can laugh in the face of adversity, you're bulletproof,
Mm,
and in the words of Ricky Gervais, he said, "Look, we're all gonna die, so we might as well just have a laugh and just get on with it, because
yeah.
laugh, you're bulletproof in a way." And I think Chekhov really highlighted that even in these tough moments, there's still humor that can be found, even if you're, I forget the character's name, someone who's in love with the doctor, but
Mm,
she knows that that love will never be requited. So she, at the end of the play, she has to find a way to come to terms with that. And of course, Vanya feels deceived because he's looked after the estate for so long, and yeah, he's kind of thrown out on a limb in a way. So even though there are these bad moments, they're still trying to find the humor in a way. So I just want to ask you about rehearsal again. So sort of shoot back to like the first day you're in, like you said, that very, very quick turnaround. So you get the
mm.
part, you learn it, you do 1 week of rehearsals, and then the first preview is the following week after that. I don't know what that does to your head. And on top of that, you've got all this text to learn. What was it sounds like a washing machine of time and energy and just
Yeah.
bang, 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 bang. What was it like?
Horrifying. It was absolutely horrifying, to be honest. I got the yeah, because I didn't even have rehearsals either. So I turned up to a um run to watch Andrew run it once. And in the evenings, so Francesca Shea, who was the assistant director, she and I would meet after she'd just done a whole day of rehearsals with Andrew and Simon and Sam. She would then sit with me for like a couple of hours and we'd talk about the script and any kind of things she could tell me blocking wise that might be helpful. But at that point, I'm just frantically trying to get the words in my head because I was like, that's the biggest hurdle. As soon as the words are in, I mean, the fact you've got nobody there to save you, and there were points where I just, even when I'd started thought like, oh, I know this bit, and then I would suddenly just stop and be like, oh my god, who talks now? Is it still me?
Yeah.
Why am I still talking? So yeah, it was a mad, it was difficult. And then when we were basically my contract, thank goodness they said I wouldn't have to be ready to go on stage until they had press night. So it sort of gave me a little bit more time. So I knew during previews I wouldn't have to, so they just cancelled the show, which
Okay.
was a relief because it meant that I got to sit and watch every preview and sort of absorb a lot in terms of movement around the stage because the lighting by James Farncombe was beautiful, but very filmic.
Mm.
And so really specific spots to hit, no freedom of no freedom of movement. So yeah, I had to really, I was lucky that I had, a bit of time. But me and Francesca, we didn't actually rehearse until, because they opened at Richmond and then they transferred to Duke of York's. So me and her didn't have any real rehearsals until they were moving the show, and then we had a week, 10 till 5. Yeah, 5 days of that, and that was basically it. We'd sneak in times in my dressing room to go over bits, and we'd have a little bit of time on stage occasionally, but it was really just one concentrated week, where yeah, we hoped I had all the lines in my head, and we'd go down to the finer details of it all and try and do it all in a week,
Yeah,
which we did.
you did.
Yeah.
How did you learn it? Was it a case of chunk by chunk, or
Mm.
yeah, what was
Yeah. Oh God. It's just the most boring part of any job is learning the lines. Like it's the hardest. As soon as that's out of the way, everything's brilliant. It's just
Mm.
that's like the bane of acting, I think. Like,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I just said it out loud, repeated it again and again and again. And I have this line learner app, which I'd really recommend. And I recorded the entire play on the line learner app and would listen to it again and again and again. And yeah, just endless repetition. And it's hard doing something like that because you can't say to like a friend, oh, will you just test me on my lines? Because you're like, this is a 2 hour play. So you're like,
Yeah.
can you test me on this really small scene? And then you'd sort of, ask another friend to test in a different scene. And yeah, it was like woefully painful and dull, but necessary. And I just set myself a target of learning two sides of A4 every day. Um, and I knew if I did that, I would have learned everything by press night. Um, but I mean, shit, it was rough trying
Yeah,
to get all that in your head.
yeah,
Um, Not my favorite part of it for sure.
yeah. But you did it. You did it.
Yeah, eventually.
So, so you mentioned there about how they would do rehearsals with Andrew, and then you'd have, was it Francesca would have sessions with you. Going back to Danny's example, she would be in the room with Justin Martin and Jodie Comer and stuff, and so she would be able to take the notes that Justin was giving to Jodie, and then they'd do a run, blah blah blah. Anyway, but they were all together at any one time. Were you allowed to sit in on rehearsals with? I know, actually, because the quick time turnover. Were you able to sit in rehearsals with Andrew even towards press night?
Um, Towards the end, I'd go in and watch him do runs, which was really valuable. But
Yeah,
by that point, the rehearsal part of it had kind of come to an end. And I think the way that they've been running it, it was because it was such a co-creation between Andrew, Simon, Rosanna, and Sam. The four of them, I think it was sort of a bit of a tight ship. Like they had a lot to work through and a lot of creative decisions and a lot of intense time that they needed to have to really work it out, because it did feel quite radical. And I think the less people in the room was quite helpful
mm.
for them to really, do what they needed to do. But I was there for the final parts of it. Um, but yeah, Chesney tended to give me all of the notes that Sam had given to Andrew. But I think as well, just knowing that our version was always going to be different,
Mm.
um, meant that some of them didn't need to be transferred to me. And I think there was a slight sense of allowing me to find my version, which was really beautiful and valuable. And one of the
Yeah,
real benefits of doing that job was that it had a freedom to it that meant that although I had to follow blocking quite closely, the actual characters and the essence of those people were completely, my creation in a sense. So it was really hugely valuable.
yeah, and it's not like you're just doing Andrew Scott part two. You're actually doing
Mm,
Victoria Blunt. This is my version of the nine characters of that are in this play. This is how I see them as a
yeah,
result of this is what I can bring to the table about it as well, which is great.
exactly. And inevitably, like, it becomes a play about women then, and a play about those voices being amplified. And I think for me as well, Uncle Vanya, I mean, it's called Uncle Vanya, and Sonia's uncle is Vanya, so it's really told through Sonia's eyes. And
Mm.
I think I don't know, feeling like, yeah, the play naturally became more about women than I think I've ever seen it before, or yeah. And that felt really good to lean into that, and to know that, even just simple things like Andrew's Irish, and all of his characters, and they're all, have inevitably, like, everything about us is completely different. So I think that was quite fun for people to come and watch as well, and see something different. And as well, there was a moment where I thought, I wonder if this play works because it's Andrew Scott.
Mm.
There was like a bit of a fear around that, of like, does this only work because, I mean, he's one of like the best actors of our generation, I think. And is it only good because he's Andrew Scott? And then to do it and feel like, oh no, it's good because Simon's written a banging play, and it's good because every person who steps in to do this will do something entirely different, and that's so exciting.
Mm. Was there any kind of, well, just very quickly, actually, no, I agree with you. There is, Andrew is an incredible person, and as well as actor. And I was lucky enough to meet him actually very briefly after he did another one man show, also written by Simon, which was Seawall. I'm not sure if
Oh
you,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
stunning, absolutely stunning. But I think it's a credit to, but that play actually as well, it's a credit to Simon's writing as well, that I think anyone could do it. It's not just because Andrew Scott does it. Yes, he does it very, very well, but I'm sure you did it incredibly well as well. I hope that there is a. In fact, I'm not. I don't know if you can tell me this, but is there a recording of yourself doing? Was your show recorded?
No, I don't think it was, and I'm actually quite glad it wasn't, because like I said to you before, like
Mm.
I have this image of, that I completely transform when I perform, and I think I'd be so sad to just be like, oh no, it's just me staggering around,
Yeah, you weren't wearing a cat
pretending to
costume.
be.
You weren't wearing a cat costume.
Yeah, exactly. But no, no, it's not been recorded, and I think I love it for that. I love that it was so, you had to be there.
Yeah. I wish I was there now. I wish I was. All right. So tell me about that night, because you only had one showing, one outing as
Mm.
Vanya, or the nine characters in Vanya. Um, yeah, tell me about that night. How did it go?
So I think I was probably in a bit of denial in the run up to it that it was actually happening, and then they released. So they'd said to me, "You will get an understudy show," which is like amazing, and
Yeah.
part of me was like, oh my God, it's incredible. And there was probably about 5% of me that was like, oh no, I don't think I can do this. Thank you so much. I
Yeah.
don't want to do it.
Bye.
Yeah, yeah. It's been a pleasure. I'll leave now.
Yes,
But no,
Andrew
I
will
was
be
like, come on.
fine. He'll be fine. He's gone.
He seems to have it just fine. So
Yeah,
yeah. But no, I was like,
yeah.
I have to do this actually. And I invited my family, which I wasn't going to do at first, and then I thought, you know what, it's not about you, Vic. You gotta like allow people to support you, and don't be so frightened of being crap. Like it's okay if it's not perfect. Because I think the pressure is that for me anyway, I'm a perfectionist. I want to go out there and know I've been so thorough, and that sorry, I know that I am. Do you want me to start that again? That's really
No, no,
annoying, that
keep going.
noise.
Keep going. It's all good.
um yeah, I think I want to know I can go out there, and that I don't know, that I've got previews to tune in and to know where the laughs are going to come, and what's going to happen in this bit and that bit. And of course you don't. You get one performance. You have to just go balls to the wall and hope that you don't forget anything, and that the pressure doesn't get to you. Because when they announced it and they released the seats in the theatre, initially they just sold the stalls and they sold out within a day. So then they opened the circle and that sold out, and then they opened the upper circle and that sold out. And I think watching that happen, and knowing that I knew maximum 50 people, and the other 620 people, I had no idea who they were, and just thought, oh my God, like this has to be really good. And it has to be like,
Yeah.
I guess I put the pressure on myself of this has to be perfect, and that's not the approach to take, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think in the run up to it, I can be quite an anxious person generally, and I think I felt pretty nervous, and I think it became quite clear as well how difficult it is to do one person plays. Just gave me a new appreciation of anyone who's done that, because you know it's all you, it's all your energy, it's all your um yeah, your creativity, your energy, your vibrancy, your ideas, and that's a lot of responsibility. And yeah, as on the day, God, I felt ill. But the assistant Chessie was so lovely and like a real rock. And she said to me, "Do you want me to stand in the wings?" And I was like, "No, you can sit in the audience. It's fine." But I think she was ready to be in the wings with a sick bucket for me. She was very supportive. And Andrew called me that morning and sent me a really beautiful message and some flowers, and just said to me, like, "Listen, I mess this up every night. Like, don't worry about it. Like, if you make a mistake, just go with it. No one knows. Like, just have
Yeah.
fun."
Yeah.
And Simon was there and Sam was there. Like, all the team came to watch, and I felt very supported. And I think there's that moment where you're sort of waiting backstage to go on. Is normally the moment where I'd be grabbing all my co-stars and like having a little cuddle and be like, "Good luck, everyone," and just to sort of be there on my own was like, oh shit, what was gonna happen now? And the play was like yeah, just shy of 2 hours, um, with no interval. So it's a real like focus exercise as well. And I'm pretty scattered. Like my focus wanes quite quickly. So for me, it was a real marathon.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I think just yeah, on my when I started, there's a lovely moment at the top which you'll see when you watch the film version of like, you come out with a bottle of water, you're the performer. There's no illusion that you're a character, you're setting the stage ready for your performance, and then the lights go out and you start. And that was kind of a nice grounding moment to come out onto the stage, look at the audience, take them in, and be
Mm.
like, okay, here we go, guys. Let's see what we can do.
Yeah.
And that I found that quite a helpful thing as well, of being like, you're co-creating this with me, because you also have to believe that I'm these 9 people. And so I'm going to do my best, but you need to take that leap as well. We need to be together on this. And I found that quite a lovely, it's not very often you get to do a show where, um, the fourth wall isn't there at the start, and it creeps in throughout the play, but, you do have that connection to the audience, which is really lovely. And yeah, I felt like, yeah, I felt when it started, I was in the flow, and I went, I did it as well as I could, in each moment, being as alive as I could. And that
Mm.
was quite inspiring about watching Andrew do it, is that he's so alive in every moment. There's no kind of, oh, this worked well last night, so I'll do this. Like, he's really alive. And I think that was sort of a frustration of only doing it once, of like, there were moments I'd love to, the things where I was like, oh, they laughed at that. Why is that funny?
Mm.
And then moments where they didn't laugh, and I think, oh, I missed that beat. And I'd love to go back and try that again and see what I can get from that. And that's just what you do over a long run. So to have one show is a challenge, but my God, I'm so lucky I got one. I've been on lots of shows where, understudies don't get any shows, and I think
Yeah.
that's really not on at all for the
Yeah.
work that goes in. So I was very grateful I got a show, for sure.
Yeah. I feel like I was living that night with you just then,
Yeah.
Yeah, because imagine you're in the wings and then you walk out on stage and you go, okay, what is my first line? Okay. And
Yeah. And
yeah.
there's a moment I had to bounce a ball, and I'd been like totally fine about it in rehearsals. And then suddenly, when like 700 people are watching you bounce a ball, like, you're never going to catch that damn ball. The ball's like rolling away from me. I was like, oh my God. Okay, here we go. And there was lots of stuff in the play that was, a challenge. Like, I had to sing, which I think sometimes can be quite revealing when you're on your own. And there were two like sex scenes in it as well, which when you're performing on your own is, you know, um, challenging. And also, like, you want to do a really good job, and you want to tell the story, but you're also like, oh my God, my mum is watching me have sex with a door. This is weird.
Yeah. Did you pre-warn her about that? Say, look, mum, it's gonna. I have to have sex with a door. Just bear with me
Yeah.
on this one.
Mum, it's going to get saucy with some furniture. Just be prepared. Yeah, I did warn her. I'd actually forgotten to tell anybody. I think I was like, I don't know, maybe just in fight or flight at that point. But yeah, I did eventually warn her. And I expected people to find it funnier than they did. But luckily, I think everyone was just sort of swept up in the moment, which was a big relief. So I was like, oh God, it's just very revealing, I think. And
Mm.
also, yeah, just I'd call it very revealing. In lots of ways, but ultimately, and I think that's why the whole thing, all of it, felt like such a challenge, because it just pushed me in directions which were, uncomfortable at times. And especially, like, like Andrew, obviously the sex scenes for Andrew look a certain way because he's a guy, and then they look a certain way for me because I'm a woman. And it was sort of like finding our feet with all the movement part of it, and sort of allowing ourselves to experiment in that sense, and come up with ideas and take some risks that did feel risky, but were
Mm.
ultimately, really artistically satisfying in a big way.
Yeah. Um, of course, like, it's not out yet, so if you can't answer this question, then just say, it's no worries. But what was the like the biggest risk that you took on this? Was it in a particular scene? Is that a question you can ask? You can answer right now.
Um, that's a good question. I don't think I can answer it, and not because it would ruin anything, but I think because my level of risk is very different to anyone else's, and I think that's the sort of, you know, some of the stuff I felt was incredibly risky for me and frightening and challenging would sound so silly to other people, but
No, there's no
I,
judgment here at all. No judgment.
yeah, I don't know. I guess
That's okay. We don't have to. We can move on.
yeah, maybe we'll move on. Maybe I'll tell
Okay.
you
Okay. Cool. Cool.
after.
Yes, right. We'll let that one slide. Okay. So you have okay. I mean, maybe this is a better one. Did you have a favorite moment in the play with that? But again, that might be giving something away. Is that a risk as well?
No, I think I can say it's. I think my favorite moment was yeah. There's a moment between Sonia and Michael, um, where she sort of, and it's in Uncle Vanya, where she sort of tells him she loves him,
Mm,
and I don't know. It's so weird when you're playing both the characters because you're sort of you've got two different hats on. You're sort of, you know, it's difficult to stay present with one person, but I always found that part just beautiful and really like I could be there so quickly and so wholeheartedly.
mm,
um and there's a moment um where you realize that, you know, it's not going to happen for her, and I think that moment again is just so human and so powerful, and, you know, a feeling that most of us have had of unrequited love. And that particular, a lot of it was face out to the audience because obviously I'm playing all the people, so I'm looking out all the time.
yeah.
um and you can feel people's responses to it and the sort of heartbreak rippling around, which is sort of lovely to know that, you know, it's the human condition in a way, and everyone has, you know, that story, I guess, in them. So yeah, they were my favorite moments, and then like tons of like really daft comedy stuff that I just love. Like there's a character called Liam who's hilarious and sweet, and yeah, like there's a bit where Ivan comes in with a bunch of flowers, which was really fun to do, which you'll see in the film. But yeah, there was some really special. I think Simon just wrote such a beautiful adaptation. I cannot sing his praises highly enough. Like
Yeah.
he really is incredible, and it felt, yeah, it felt magical actually. Some of the moments in that.
Yeah, I think you've perfectly captured. I think how Chekhov, but how he is so relevant. You know, we were talking earlier about Shakespeare and how relevant he is. But Chekhov, this production, you know, amongst many others, is one of the reasons why Chekhov still needs to be celebrated and still needs to be done.
Mm,
Because yeah, some people can interpret him as sad and stuff like that. But I think one thing that Andrew talked about in an interview was Chekhov was actually a doctor, and
yeah.
and he saw everyone of all walks of life, of all personalities in his clinic. And so he's documenting not only just experiences as a doctor, but what the human condition is really, really like. And for some people, it's bleak, but for some people,
Yeah.
it's really, really happy. And
Yeah.
find the joy in both of them as well, which I think is a really lovely juxtaposition, antithesis, whatever it is you want to call it, about how, yeah, life is like, it's not it's like this, you know, it's up and down,
Mm,
it's up and down, it's up and down, but I think no matter how far it goes down, there's always a route to get back up. And
yeah.
and you know, is that saying of rock bottom, there's always a way to get back up there, which of course is what I think he brilliantly captures, not only just, you know, especially in Vanya, then you've got, the seagull, you've got three sisters, you know, you've got so much more else to explore
Mm,
as well, and finding that humor. And in terms of,
yeah.
you mentioned that word magic earlier, and if this does apply to this next question, then please do sort of correct me if it doesn't. But I want to talk. So we talked about like you're waiting there in the wings, and you get out there and it starts going. You know, some things works. You think it's like, why is that funny? I didn't find that funny. And other moments you're like, oh, it didn't quite work. Oh, never mind. Carry on. So, but can you remember the moment where you finish the show, the lights go down, and it's blackout, and you're there going, I've done it. I've done
Yeah.
it. You remember that moment?
I do. And my friend has a video of me coming on at the curtain call.
Mm.
And it's I mean I look truly overwhelmed.
I
And I
don't
think
blame you. I don't blame you.
yeah, it's yeah, it was yeah, there's a moment I bow and you can see me take probably the deepest breath I've taken in the last 2 hours. It's like I've forgotten to breathe for not breathe for a day. But yeah, it's yeah, I remember getting to the end, and I remember as well, like, so I'm glad we're talking a little bit after it, because I remember really self-flagellating, and I'm terrible for this, where, all my friends came running up to my dressing room and all I wanted to say was, did you see the bit where I dropped the tennis ball, and did you see this bit, and was this okay? And it was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus Christ, like, you've just done something really, like, amazing. Like, just enjoy it. Just enjoy it. It wasn't
Yeah.
perfect, but that's what makes it perfect.
Yeah.
And I think having some perspective now, like, I think it's hard. I don't give myself many breaks, and I'm trying really hard to just be more gentle with myself and to say, hey, you know what? Like, you had one shot, you did a really good job. Like, listen to what people are saying to you, because people were so generous. Like, people I didn't know gave me lovely feedback, and I just thought, I think the impulse is to be like, everybody's lying. Why are they all lying to me? But you've got to. It's a hard thing about being sensitive, being a performer, opening up your heart in those moments, and being vulnerable, because you're on stage doing these things that make you so vulnerable and so open to criticism, and
Mm.
so open to people laughing at you, and not in a good way. And it's a really crazy position we put ourselves into, and I can be
Yeah.
quite cruel to myself. And I think for a few days after, I had to really kind of recalibrate and settle a bit. I remember Andrew saying he struggled a bit at first as well, just with the intensity of it and the level of vulnerability you feel by the end of going on this journey of all the spectrum of human emotions. I mean, you literally go through the ringer, and by the end you're like, I don't know who I am, what I'm doing, why I'm crying. I
Mm.
don't know what's going on. And my assistant director Chessie just sat in the dressing room with me, um, eating chips and drinking prosecco, and she just sort of let me sit there and process it all, and kind of talk, and that was lovely. And then afterwards I was like, any nice message I got about it, I kind of couldn't take it in at first, so I kept screenshotting things, and I put them in a little photo album to look at later, because I was like, I can't take any of this on board,
Yeah.
but I know in a few weeks time I'll need to read this and be kind to myself and take it in. But yeah, I just remember finishing it and thinking, wow, I did it. I actually did it. And but it taking a while to feel proud of myself for it. I think,
Yeah.
like I say, yeah, being a perfectionist is not a good thing. It's something that you can really use to self-harm, and it's you've got to go gently when you're doing work like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really interesting that, once but just by the way, everything you said there, I resonate with entirely. I'm definitely one of those people that, because I actually wrote a one-man show for my final piece,
Wow.
at drama school, and I'm currently writing it and adapting it now. And Simon Stevens is definitely a huge influence. I've watched his stuff, I've read his stuff, and when I go and see Vanya in a couple of weeks, I'm definitely going to be watching it, because it's very similar to all these different characters at any one point. So it's based in a pub, so I'm basically looking at how I can bring all these different personalities in, and so basically I'm going to steal
Great.
everything that Simon's going to do. Sorry, mate. So it won't be. It's not Uncle Vanya, so it's okay. No copyright issue. But yeah. But anyway, to get back to what I was going to say is that, yeah, just what you were talking about there, I think is what every actor goes through. I've been awful at that. I remember at drama school so many times I'd be like, oh God, did you watch that bit in Scream when I did this? And people going, Ollie, it was fine. Ollie, you did really
Yeah.
well. And I'm like, but every time this brain just whatever part it is has this amazing way of just going, you could have just finished a monologue of, till this, let's slip the dogs of war. Everyone's up on their feet, clapping. Oh my God, that's amazing. But they're going, that part of you is going, yeah, you could have done it better. You could have done it better.
Mm.
And it's like, we just have to just silence that voice and just be like, look, even when you walked off stage, like you said just there, oh, did you see where I had the tennis ball this, tennis ball that? And then people going, Vic, you've just done an hour and 40 show with 9 characters completely by yourself,
Mm.
and you've got so many. I'm sure you've got many, many lovely messages, by the way. But I think that one thing that you talked about there is we just need to just own our work a lot more and just feel proud. Of course, we're going to make mistakes. Nothing's perfect. We're
Yeah.
all, we're all doing things that don't work, and if it doesn't work, fine, just forget about it and just move on. Easier said than done, granted, but it's how we grow and how we learn as people, and especially as actors. I'll tell you a very quick story, if I may.
Mm.
I've mentioned this in another show, but we had to do this self-tape thing, and I tried to learn it. And everyone else in the group had done that self-tape technique, where the person behind the camera has got the script, and you're basically just reading it like that. I tried to learn it, and it was a script with all this huge economic dialogue in it, and we presented it to the whole class, and I won't lie to you, I was shocking. And I'm literally just looking at the camera going, I don't know what the next word is. I don't know what the next word is. I basically just squeezed this monologue out, and everyone in the room was very sweet. They all gave me a big clap and everything, but there was a feeling of like, Ollie, what the fuck was that? And I just sat there and I thought, when you have those moments where you just go, God, if you're there, I want to disappear right now, just on the ground,
Yeah.
just open up now. I want to disappear. But actually, it set me free in a way, because I thought, I'll never do anything as bad as that again. Now I know what to do. And yeah, thanks for not telling me about the trick, by the way, guys. That was really, really helpful. But anyway,
I
enough
also
about me.
think
Yeah, sorry, go
no,
on.
but it's a good point, because I also think that this is a real clowning thing as well, of like failure, delighting in failure, and the failure sort of being the start of it, really. And the worst thing that will happen is you'll forget the line, you'll drop the tennis ball, and guess what? You survive and you're all right. And nobody remembers that. You're the only person that remembers that. Everyone remembers the amazing thing you did later on, or whatever. It's never that's never the end of the story, that one failure, and I don't know, in drama school they had this thing. Oh God, who was it? It's a quote by, I think it's Beckett. Ever tried, ever failed?
Yeah,
Fail again, fail better. And I think it's so good. Like, yeah, just that's the only way you're ever gonna, learn whatever it is you need to learn. And that's the whole principle of clown as well, is just when you're in the shit, when you're really failing, that's when you come alive and when the good stuff comes. So yeah, it's a good lesson in that, I guess.
absolutely. This is a question, I think, for anyone who I think is tackling a one-man show, myself included. This is also a question for me, as many for anyone else. But having been through that experience of Vanya, what would you say was like the key bits of advice or key takeaways that you got from this that you would pass on to someone who is tackling a one-man show or one woman show in the future?
Well, that's interesting. Um, I think one thing I realized, and what we talked about early on, was like signposting. So, first of all, the thing that I think is just amazing about one person shows is that in a
Yeah,
world where we have so much tech, to watch a person go in and out of different characters, playing different ages, different, life experiences, to watch someone do that in front of your face is just incredible. So I love it so much. I love watching it. I love doing it. I think initially what we realized is we had to signpost a little bit for the audience, just for ease. So each character had, I guess it's almost like a psychological gesture. And also I found Laban efforts quite helpful for each
Yeah.
character to have, you know, their own kind of speed, their own heartbeat. I think I found it easier to think about their heart and how their heart worked. Um, and yeah, so the psychological gesture, like I had Helena, she like her kind of favorite bit about herself was her hair. So she would often play with her hair when she was talking. And I think things like that can sort of, and they're just to help the audience, like give them a little, you know, indication
Mm.
of this is where I am. But as the play went on, we could drop more and more of that and sort of the audience would piece everything together. So I guess like when you're looking at your characters, yeah, I think finding their heartbeat's important. Are they really fast? Are they slow? How much pain have they felt? How does their body move in the space? Like, you know, so much of you and your life is in your body, and that's, you know, free. We can just move that in whatever way we want. We can find different things within it. You know, you don't have to have a full costume change. You can just adapt yourself and find it in yourself.
Mm.
um so I think like not being afraid to try something really simple. Sometimes the most simple idea is the most effective. um yeah, and have fun. I think you can tell when people are having fun telling stories.
Yeah.
And you know, that was the joy of Vanya as well, is that it was really fun to do. And although I had like, you know, a little meltdown afterwards and like nerves before, like the bit of being on stage is that's, you know, the love of my life. That's the play. That's I mean, it's called a play for a reason. You know, it is play. It's fun, and finding the fun through it is amazing for us, but really wonderful for an audience to witness as well.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I never thought of that before. What is their heart? Where's their heart? What's the beat of their heart?
Mm.
What's their heartbeat? How do they feel what they've been through? Yeah. Oh, thank you for that. I never thought about that before. Yeah.
Yeah, it was only this play where it kind of occurred to me. I don't know why. I think because Laban efforts I do find useful, but I think that to me always translates into a, yeah, into a heartbeat, almost into a the most intimate part of somebody. You know, what does that look like? What are they working with?
Amazing. Vic, I could talk to you about Vanya for ages. I really could. I've still got so many more questions for you about the show, about the text and everything. I know we are slightly pushed for time. I know you've got to shoot off in a few minutes. But I just got a few more things for you. Uh, I had a question and now it's just vanished. Where has it gone? It's vanished from my brain. Um, oh, wait, there it is. There it is. I got it. So, throughout this whole experience, what would you say that just not just Julius Caesar or anything else that you've done, but specifically this show very recently? What did it give you, and what is it taken away?
Oh wow. Um okay, what did it give me? Um it gave me an opportunity to play characters I would never be cast as normally. And
Hmm.
I think, like, don't get me wrong, representation is so important. Um, and I would always want people to have opportunities to play the characters that, you know, they want to play. But I think for me to have the opportunity to play such a wide variety of people um, was a gift, because I don't think I'd normally be cast as half of those characters. So, you know, the freedom to inhabit parts of myself that I wouldn't normally get to do was a true joy that really gave me confidence and freedom, and yeah, it gave me a chance to show myself what I can do
Yeah.
when I have the opportunity. Um, would it take away? I think it actually took away some of my perfectionist stuff. I think that whole process of coming off and the sort of torment I went through shortly after was a real lesson for me on, like, don't do that. Don't ruin your own experience, because you don't need to, because you're good enough and you're strong enough, and whatever you do out there, you're doing it, and it might not be absolutely perfect, but that's the perfection of theatre, is that it will never be, whenever you do a long run, you'll have one night where act two is brilliant, one night where act one was great, one night where, whatever. And I think as you have that, normally it doesn't feel as pronounced as when you do one show. So I think it took away some of my harder edges and made me a little bit softer with myself, which I'm incredibly grateful for, because I've certainly been much more lax on myself since then.
That's a very good takeaway. It's just like nothing's perfect, as much as we want
Yeah.
it to be, but it isn't. But then that's the beauty. Nothing's perfect. So why try to make it perfect when it's not achievable? And that,
Yeah,
and
and it's a
it's a
living,
huge relief.
breathing thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It's a relief. It's a relief to force yourself into that, because yeah, like I say, it's a living, breathing thing. It's a play, it's a production. It's not a film. It's not, it's not going to be, certainly my version, it's not going to be, you know, recorded, and that's the only way it's ever going to be. Like, it's fluid, it's moving, it's breathing. And that's a lovely thing I learned from Andrew, of like that level of presence and alertness, and yeah, really forcing yourself to be in that specific moment, and not to think, oh, I have to get to this emotion at this point, but to just be like, where am I right now?
Yeah.
Let's go with this. Yeah.
Fantastic. Just got two more questions for you, Vic, and then I know you're off to the theatre tonight, so I won't make you late for
Mm.
that. So first one is, you might have answered this already in your last little bit you just did there, but what would you say was a piece of advice that you wish you'd heard, like right back at the beginning when you were starting out?
I think I was thinking about this earlier, actually. Uh, I think it's delight in other people's success, and don't look sideways all the time and think that, so Emily Barrington said this to me, actually, other people's success isn't your failure. I think when you're an actor and
Hmm.
you're almost you're almost told or led to believe that there are finite possibilities, and there's this big competition, and it's a big sprint to get work, and the competition is so high, blah blah blah. And there was a time when I wasn't working. I was finding it very difficult. And I found it really hard to be happy for people when they got really great work. And I think what I've learned over the years is to not look sideways at what anyone else is doing. Your journey is your journey. It's a marathon. Um, if you want to be an actor, which I love being an actor, I love the work. I want to be in it for the long haul. So I don't have to have this job, this day, this moment. It can, take several, it's going to be a lifetime of working.
Yeah.
And some years it'll be busy and some years it'll be quiet, but other people's success is no comment on my journey and where I'm at. And I think, yeah, maybe that's been sort of the thing. I wish I'd embraced it earlier, because I think if I'm being really truthful, I spent a bit of time feeling sad and envious that, people, that I wasn't achieving what I wanted to achieve, and I wasn't, as successful as I wanted to be. And I think when you're unhappy, it's difficult to be happy for other people.
Mm.
But yeah, that's, certainly in the last sort of 4 or 5 years, just really feeling joy for my friends and colleagues when they get work, and going and supporting them and reveling in it and being so happy for other people has
Mm.
made a difference to me as well. I don't know, it probably makes me sound like an awful person, but I think there's something inherently in us as actors that is sort of, comparison's a thief of joy, isn't it?
Oh,
You
hugely.
can't help, yeah, you can't help but do it, but it does rob you of any level of joy. So yeah, I wish I'd come to that sooner, but I'm glad I'm there now.
Yeah, of course. No, again, you've managed to brilliantly articulate what every actor goes through. It's that envy, which and comparison, which is a thief of joy. Exactly. But yeah, no, that's brilliant. That's another thing I've taken from you. Just other people's success isn't your failure, which I think is, you look at people and you think, oh my God, they're doing much better than me. What am I doing? It's like,
Yeah.
shh, calm down. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Again, it's a, people say, oh, it's a cliche, but it's absolutely true. Like what you just said, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You've got
Mm.
to manage it, and rest is so important, and take your time. Take your time. It doesn't matter, just it happens when it happens. And yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And also the journey is like meant to be the fun bit, right? I think this is the first time in my life I've enjoyed the between moments in jobs. I've always been really depressed when I finish a job, and now I actually treasure the time because I
I'm the
think, well,
same.
who knows what's next? Like how exciting that the door's wide open now. Let's see what comes through. Whereas before I'd be like, oh my God, I'll never work again. What am I doing with my life? But I don't know, I've chilled out a lot more about it. And that's given me a lot more freedom mentally as well. And I think knowing the difference between jealousy and envy is important, because envy isn't that it's not that you don't want other people to have it, it's that you want it yourself. And I think,
Mm,
us giving ourselves a bit of a break and being like, it's okay if I feel envious, that's just telling me I want that too. And actually, do I want that? Like,
mm,
what is my version of success? Because it's going to be different to someone else's version. And I'm the only person who knows what success looks like for me. And I have to be the one to pat myself on the back when I do something good, or something I'm proud of, because it's not always going to, the first time I paid my rent through an acting job, I was so proud of myself, and no one's going to come to my door and go, well done, Victoria, you've paid. But like knowing what your version of success is so important, so you can celebrate yourself.
mm. Amazing. I resonate with you on so many levels. I'm like, when so many times I'm going, yeah, that's me. Yeah, that's me. That's me. Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm sure you've resonate with many, many others as well. So just thank you for all that. That's brilliant. And finally today, what's been an experience or experiences you've had in your career up to this point that you're never, ever going to forget?
Oh my God. Uh, I mean, definitely Vanya. That's for sure the most batshit thing I've ever done in my life.
Of course.
Um, but there was a mad job I had with with the Jennifer Saunders was in and Kathy Burke was directing,
Wow.
and it was so bizarre. And I was involved in a song with Jennifer Saunders in Act 3, and she's like, her and Kathy Burke are obviously icons and idols and amazing. And I remember rehearsing this song, and I just thought, I'm just going to try something. And I did this really stupid thing, and Jennifer Saunders looked at me and then went with it and started to really run with this joke. And we sort of built this really weird moment that was like really funny. But I remember thinking, God, you're at the top of your game, and you've got this little rat of a 28-year-old, coming in here, like throwing offers, and you're graceful enough and generous enough to go with it and to allow me to be seen. And she would play with me every night, and the generosity of that was extraordinary. And she would often have, I was understudying in that as well, but I was on stage understudy, and she would have all the understudies in her dressing room. For Act 4, we'd drink champagne in her dressing room. And she was just like an extraordinary person and a wildly generous person. I think that's some of my favorite things about this job, is that you get to work with so many different people, and it never ceases to amaze me, the kindness and the warmth and the generosity in our industry. And it blows me away. And that whole experience of working with people who I've just loved my entire life was, there was a moment I was sitting on Kathy Burke's toilet in her house, and I just thought, what the hell am I doing here?
How did I get here?
Um, yeah, I think that job was one I'll never forget. And then, there's so much. I think each job just brings its own joy and its own challenge, and that's how lucky are we that we get to
Yeah.
do that.
Amazing. Fantastic. Vic, thank you so, so much. This has been a really, really great chat. I've really, really loved it. I still have so many more questions for you. I mean, I'd love to have you back. Let's do a part 2.
I'd
And
love that. I'd absolutely love that.
Brilliant. Cool. You'll be hearing from me in the future. Great. I still have so many questions about Vanya, and of course your sketches, your own work and everything. So many more things. But unfortunately, time doesn't permit us to get that far. But we will get it all in next time, I'm sure. Well, yeah, wonderful. What an episode. Thank you so much for your generosity, for your vulnerability, and for just sharing aspects of that experience of Vanya and, of course, your career, which I know she's going to keep going from strength to strength. And I can't wait to see what you're going to do next. And yeah, just thank you. I don't know what else to
That's
say.
so
Just thank you.
kind. Thank you so much. That's really lovely of you to say, and I've really enjoyed chatting. I'd love to do it again. Thank you.
No, thank you, thank you. If you just hang on, I'll finish the recording. I'll say goodbye to your one-to-one. But yeah, wow, I don't know what else to say. Cheers, guys. Thanks for watching. No, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate you watching, tuning in, listening. And one final time, Victoria, thank you. Thank you so much.
Cheers. See you again soon.